Good afternoon, viewers. My name is Eyitayo Ogunyemi, and welcome to another session on your favorite radio, Accent Radio. So today, Accent Litigation is going to be taking you on a journey to learn one or two things about law, and as it relates especially to what we call your image right. So what's the question? What's the question we want to answer in this conversation today? So we are talking about a topic which is titled what to do if your picture or your video is publicly used without your consent. What you should do if your picture or video is publicly used without your consent. So we are inspired to have this conversation because over the months we realized that a number of our community members were having issues with having their pictures out there, and then out there by commercial entities, and not just picture, right? Not just picture now, but picture. It could be motion picture, meaning like video, even their voice. I mean, these are personal things. These are things that relate to humans personally. So what should you do when either of these things that relates to you personally is out there and is being used by a third party without your informed consent? So I was saying why we're inspired to have this conversation, of course, is because we're beginning to have complaints from a number of our community members about how they are. So we had one where the picture was out there being used by a commercial entity to create awareness for their product, and a number of different people with different complaints. And we also had one where it was the video, and there are peculiarities to all of these things, but something that is common to every of these examples is the fact that there was no consent. So how should you handle a situation where something about you, your image, your video, as a video of you, or a recording of you, so it could be your voice, either of these things or anything more, is out there and is being used for commercial gains without your consent? I want us to put things in proper perspective in this conversation, which is very, very crucial. Now, the first thing I want us to break down, which I want us to narrow down in this conversation, is that this conversation has to do with a situation where a third party, someone else, is using your image, right? And we've given the explanation of image here, that it includes, yes, your picture, it includes a motion picture, video, or a recording, or any of these things, right? So when I say image, is being considered from that context. So the question is that it's being used for a commercial purpose by a third party. So it's not like this is just being put out there. There is a sense of gain in using your image. This is one of the contexts with which we are having this conversation today. And another context is that your image is out there without your approval, without your informed consent. These are things that we have to put in proper context before having this conversation. So the first good news I want to tell you is the fact that you have a right to your person, you have a right to your image, you have a right to your recording, you have a right to your videos of you rather. You have a right to all of these things, which the law also recognizes. Is the first thing that I need to bring to your attention. And the second thing I would love to bring to your attention is that this right is actually captured across different laws. interestingly, so I would just mention some of these laws. You have a right that is captured under what is called intellectual property laws. You may want to explore that. You have a right that is captured under what is called your common law right of publicity. We would also come to that. And you have a right to privacy. Now, this is a constitutional conversation. We want to look at these options that you have, because all of these options can be explored in alternative. So do you want to go for your right under intellectual property law? Do you want to go for your right under common law? Do you want to go for your right under the 1999 Constitution? Let's start with intellectual property rights. Intellectual property rights would definitely come under your right as relates to copyright. Now, this would assume that your image, your picture itself is a copyright. But this may not be too straightforward sometimes, especially with a lot of things to be proved, and especially because a defendant that is able to manipulate the loopholes may be able to raise issues by reason of which that defense, or better still, that claim may become a tough one to maneuver. If you are looking at challenging or enforcing your rights as a matter of intellectual property, you would then be looking at going to court at the Federal High Court, which of course is the court that has the authority over such a subject. Let's move to the next line of rights, which is what is called a common law related right. Now, under common law, you have what is called right to publicity of value. Right, it's really called the right to publicity. So, but this right emphasizes the fact that there is a commercial gain that is attributable to your person. Now, this is a subjective test. Better still, this is a test of a reasonable man. And how does it work? It would mean that within the space where your picture, your image, whether your video, recording or stuff, is being used without your consent, that there is a commercial value to your person. It could mean you are renowned. It could mean that you are well known. So let's say, for instance, that your image is being used in a village where nobody knows you, and where the fact that your image is being used will not bring any additional commercial gain to the person using that image, then you may not be able to enforce a right under common law, because the right under common law presupposes that there is already a commercial value to your person. So, for instance, let's say a Ronaldo was used without his approval, without his consent, to create awareness on a football project in Nigeria. Now, that will of course drive traffic for that project. That is because Ronaldo has a commercial value in the context of the subject for which that picture is being used. And so Ronaldo can decide to then enforce a common law right to publicity. And this is how this works. So you need to look at yourself first, and you need to look at, do you represent something within the subject matter of that awareness that was put out without your approval. And then once you look at all of that, you can then begin to analyze whether you have a course of action that you can go to the court for. Now, that's the second thing that you can do. Let's come to the third, which is the most juicy. Now, I leave the very best for the last. your right to privacy. I'm going to read the Constitution with your approval, okay? And I assume that you have given me that approval. And by the way, I hope you have a copy of the 1999 Constitution, because this is very crucial. It's a list that you should have in your library. If you read storybooks, you read novels, you read books, motivational, or some textbooks, you should add the 1999 Constitution to the volume of books that you have in that library. So if you have your Constitution with you, where you have the same way you would open the Bible and the holy books, join me in section 37 of the 1999 Constitution. Now, section 37 reads that the privacy of citizens, their homes, correspondence, telephone conversations, and telegraphic communications is hereby guaranteed and protected. Let me give you a good short background to section 37. Every country, every nation has what is called fundamental human rights, and laws are usually made to protect those rights. Fundamental human rights are known to be fundamental because they are the minimum level protected rights that are attributable to the citizens, the people, by reason of being human. It is called human rights because we are not animals, and it is called human rights because it's the base level rights that you should have as a human. In Nigeria, we have what is called the Chapter 4 of the 1999 Constitution. The Chapter 4 of the 1999 Constitution talks about the rights that the state has given to its people. Now, that is why it is referred to as fundamental human rights. In essence, there is a difference between human rights and fundamental human rights. Human rights could be what nature has given unto us because we are human. But fundamental human rights are the rights that the country as a whole, by its position or by its authority, has now given to you as human, and saying, look, you can take this anywhere, you are going to be protected by reason of this, which is what Chapter 4 of the 1999 Constitution is all about. Section 37 of Chapter 4 now deals with what we are talking about in today's context. And isn't it interesting that by reason of the law, you have a right to privacy, which is exalted as a fundamental human right, and not just as a human right, but a fundamental human right. And I want to read this again, section 37. It says the privacy of citizens, their homes, correspondence, telephone conversations, and telegraphic communications is hereby guaranteed and protected. The first line of that section 37 is what we are going to be emphasizing. It says the privacy of citizens. That word privacy, or that statement, privacy of citizens, is already a larger than life context and content. In essence, you have a right to your privacy. So, may I then ask you, as my listener, are you a citizen of Nigeria? If you answer in the affirmative by saying yes, the Constitution is then telling you that, look, your privacy is guaranteed. Your privacy is protected. And what constitutes privacy in this context? You have a privacy to your body. You have a privacy to your being. You have a privacy to everything that relates to you as human. And so when somebody then picks any of these things and goes to use without your approval, that person has just simply violated your rights to privacy. And in doing that, it means that you can compel, by reason of this Constitution, that your rights has been infringed, and that such a person should compensate you for for infringing, for going against your right to privacy. So if I decide to visit somewhere, and then, let's say I decide to visit the court. I'm a lawyer, and I decide to visit the court. Into the court, somebody then picks my video while I was addressing the judge, and then decides to use my statement for some private commercial gains. That person is considered to be infringing my privacy, because whatever I was saying was not meant for them to use for some private commercial gains. And so this is just the interesting part of how the law works. And I would love to read some things to you. And I know that you would have questions as well. Please feel free to drop your questions in the comment box, and I assure you that we are going to get to those questions. Now look at this. I'm going to read this to you. This is just one of the cases that drive home what I'm explaining in this conversation today. It says the meaning of the term privacy of citizen is not directly obvious on the face of that section 37. It is obviously wide, as it does not define the specific aspects of the privacy of citizens that it protects. So it's very broad. It just says the privacy of citizens is hereby guaranteed, right? So a citizen is ordinarily a human being that has body, has life, person, thoughts, conscience, belief, decisions, including his plans and choices, desires, health, relationships, character, possession, family, and then the list goes. So, how should the term privacy of the citizen be understood? Should it be understood to exclude the privacy to some parts of his life? And here's what the Supreme Court has said about this, that the right to privacy, right, implies right to protect one's thoughts, conscience, religious belief, practice from coercive and unjustified intrusion, and also to protect one's body from unwarranted invasion. These are some of the contexts in which I would want you to look at the right to privacy. Now I'm going to also read another citation here that I'm sure that you would find very enlightening and interesting to drive home the point about the right to privacy. It says, a picture of a person mirrors his own image, which is personal to him. Now, him, it could be him or her. It is a choice of an individual. For a business concern to take a picture of somebody for pecuniary interest without that person's consent or authorization constitutes a serious erosion of rights to privacy of that citizen. I didn't say this, but the courts have said so. And so, again, if you're in this kind of situation, you might be considering three different options. You may want to do a case under intellectual property law. You may want to do a case under common law, or you may want to do a case by virtue of the 1999 Constitution. I've tried to give the shortcomings or the possible challenges you might face and what you should also look out for depending on your choices. The good thing about going for an action pursuant to your right to privacy is the fact that you don't need to be a popular jingo. You don't need to be a Ronaldo that has some level of value to your personality before you can enforce that law. But of course, this is the limitation with the common law of publicity. But then that is not there under the Constitution. And these are very, very solid options you may want to explore. just in case you find yourself in those shoes. Remember, you can drop your comments in the chat box, and you can also send in your questions. We would be very happy to hear from you. And if you like what we are doing, why not share this video with other people that you may know? Why not share this video as well on your status? Share it everywhere, and this is how you can also help us to reach out to more people. Thank you for joining today's conversation. My name remains Eyitayo Ogunyemi, and I'm privileged to take the lead on today's conversation. We'll be here again tomorrow, same time and same venue, on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. You'll meet us everywhere. Please remember to subscribe, and see you again tomorrow.